Laws govern everyday life. The legal system exists to provide justice to everyone. Attorneys are there to serve. If bankruptcy looms, if the police come knocking on your door, if your constitutional rights have been violated, or if you or a loved one have been injured through no fault of your own, we depend on them to defend our rights. Many are intimidated by the complexities of the law. Our mission is to help you navigate the legal system, to provide you with news you can use on Talking Law TV.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Law TV. I'm your host, Michael Short. On this episode, Doug Andrews will talk to us about DUI. When the cop says breath, you say blood. Gene Brooks will talk about mesothelioma and asbestos. And with special new guest attorney, Charles C. Greil, one of the West Side's most established attorneys, will be on the show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
Have a legal question for a Talking Law TV attorney? We offer 3 ways to ask it. Call 888-2037-LAW for our free viewer phone line. Email your question through the website at talkinglawtv.com or text your message to Talking Law TV. Get a link sent to your mobile phone by texting TLTV-SAV to 82672. It's legal news you can use when you need it, anytime and any place.
And we're back with Talking Law TV, and we're here with Doug Andrews. Hi, Doug.
Hi, Michael.
And so we announced already the topic here was breath versus blood.
I get that question a lot. Driver comes to me after he's been arrested and bonded out of jail, and he comes in and says, I demanded a blood test. He wouldn't give me a blood test. Well, did you take their breath test? Well, no, he wouldn't give me a blood test. Well, you got it backwards.
What gives them the right to offer or refuse a chemical test?
Well, first off, you have to be lawfully arrested, and that triggers their right of the police officer to demand any kind of test from you. The police officer gets to choose which test the police officer prefers and wants. Usually they go for a breath test because it's cheaper and quicker, and he may be trained to do it himself. Blood is just, so messy, and they don't want to either take the time to get a phlebotomist, somebody licensed to draw blood there, so they say breath. And you either say okay or no, or give no answer, in which case it's a refusal. If you submit to the police officer's request for their test, whatever it is, you then have the right to get your own test. And you may choose breath, which would be kind of stupid because you just flunked one of them. Why do that again? Blood or urine. Urine is useless in alcohol cases, and it's not very much help in drug cases either. So blood would be the natural choice. And there's only one outfit in town where you can get somebody to come 24/7 to draw your blood, and that's Health Awareness in Garden City. For $125, they'll draw your blood, send it to the lab. You can't get it done at any hospitals, so forget that.
So do they come out to the jail to serve you?
They absolutely will come out and draw blood there. And I've had a couple cases where, they don't tell you which test they're going to do. That's your choice as the customer. And so the person will say, well, okay, I'll do another breath test. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
From the same machine that you just did.
Or their machine, a portable breath test. So if you're going to bother with a test, if it's important to you, get a blood draw as soon as you possibly can. Don't delay.
Tell me about the delay, because I would think a delay would be a good thing.
Well, no, because let's say that the breath test showed 0.095 grams of alcohol, and that's what the police officer is going to try to convict you on, being above 0.080. And you get a blood test 2 hours later, and it's 0.075, you're below the legal limit. That doesn't mean that you weren't above the legal limit earlier during the breath test. So the elimination rate would probably support, well, that shows the breath test was right, that you were at that level, and 0.015 burn-off rate for the average person per hour would put you down there at that lower level. So you haven't proven anything except their test was probably correct.
So one test doesn't supersede the other one, it just confirmed it.
That's correct, or it can contradict it, but they have to be fairly close together to make any sense, because otherwise they're just going to say, well, it was you were coming down the scale. and that's why the difference is. So if the breath test actually made a mistake, that you had mouth alcohol contamination, gave you a false high reading, you want a blood test as close in time as you possibly can. More than an hour is probably not going to help.
Okay. What about some of the myths when you're pulled over? Tic Tacs, mouthwash?
It's funny, I've seen so many police reports where the officer says, well, I detected the odor of breath mint, and I believe the driver was trying to mask alcohol. So you're darned if you do and darned if you don't. Those things, though, I believe can give a false high reading if you have that in your mouth when you're blowing into the infrared breath testing device. Ingredients of most of those things, if you look on the container, it has maltitol, sorbitol, and guess what the last two letters of those are? OL, just like alcohol. It's a sugar alcohol. So that may give you a false high reading. So you sure don't want to have that in your mouth. And the thing about putting a penny in your mouth, never seen it work.
No. I would imagine there'd be no change from that one. We got a little slide here. When you first get pulled over and you start doing all the tests on the side of the road.
Oh, you mean those things I call warm-up exercises to go to jail? Yeah. Those are voluntary, by the way. You don't have to do them. And if you don't do them, then the officer is going to go on what he knows at that point. Either bad driving, odor of alcohol, red and glassy eyes, flushed face. And by the way, red and glassy eyes and flushed face, most officers are unaware that have been trained a number of years ago that those are now out of the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, NHTSA, guidelines for field sobriety testing because it may be ethnic, it may be environmental. Irishmen have ruddy skin. They maybe naturally have a red complexion. American Indians may have. So it could be ethnic, nothing related to alcohol. So they've taken that out of the clues, but so many officers still put it in their report. Red and glassy eyes and flushed face.
Okay, and then they take you back to do their machine, and this is typically at the police headquarters?
That's right. There are some mobile units in what looks like a bread van, and the question is whether that is a dedicated source, sole source of electricity on that line for the intoxilizer, which is factory spec requirement, that it be a sole source electrical line, not on extension cord with anything else, and whether or not it's run by a generator. We know the fluctuating voltage on generators, and I've heard they've got one in a car somewhere. I don't think that's approved, but if that air conditioner kicks on in your automobile, you know what happens. Anything that's plugged into that, you're going to get a fluctuation. And that can give you a false reading.
And then the blood test, as you've already said, is not done by a police person, but an outside person.
Well, actually, police department do have some licensed, trained phlebotomists that will come and draw blood, like in your serious accident case. They won't do it for you, but they'll do it for another officer's request. That's why they are trained to do it. And they usually use a non-alcohol swab. Can you imagine swabbing that site with an alcohol swab and then sticking the needle through it? Sounds like contamination to me. So
Okay.
most of them use non-alcohol, but that's something to be worried about.
Okay. We have about a minute left. Give me the condensed Cliff Notes version on what to do and what the response should be. You've been pulled over. I'm asking you to do the fingers and walk the lines. What are you going to tell me?
Be nice to the officer. And depends upon, have you had too much to drink? If you want to plead guilty, if you want to confess guilt and you think you really are, and you can live with a conviction, for goodness sakes, take every test they offer you and help them prove their case. If you cannot live with conviction, you don't think that you're impaired, decline testing, because you're not going to pass the test in all likelihood. So why give them something to talk about? Makes no sense. You have the right to refuse, but if you do, you'll probably be arrested anyway.
And then what happens? Then we get an attorney?
Then you've cut your battle in half. Instead of having both less safe impaired driver, the officer's opinion, and an intoxilizer's opinion, you're over the limit, two separate opinions, you have one fight, us against the police officer, whether he made a mistake or it was true.
Okay.
Let a jury decide.
All right. Thank you, Doug. We'll be back with Gene Brooks talking about mesothelioma and asbestosis right after this. Stay tuned.